Trump's new social media site, Truth Social, is live. And if you've been burdened by the authoritarian trappings of Twitter and Facebook and all that, you finally have a place to go, a social media site that is all freedom all the time, except if you mock this guy next to me or impersonate a fictional cow. Because Matt Ortega has posted on Twitter, if we can bring this up, the first apparent banning of an account on this free speech site. They have canceled him, not shadow banned him, fully banned him, because he tried to create the account Devin Nunes's cow. Of course, you knew that it was coming. You could hear the moo in the distance as the site readied for launch. Well, anyway, it has been banned. So we can go if we want to through some of what they say are the very minor, don't worry about it, limitations on free speech. But we've been predicting from the very beginning that this is the direction it's gonna go in. They can talk about how this is about stopping cancel culture. They're not gonna allow mocking Donald Trump. They're gonna be like stamping out left-wing viewpoints and things like that. They certainly won't allow you to mock the platform or its CEO. Devin Nunes's like reputation or his sense of self is clearly more important than the First Amendment as far as they can see.
So, but John, this is private company, as we've talked about before, in the context of Twitter and Facebook, and it's run by, owned by a private individual that had no connection to the government, and probably will, and says that he will never have another connection to the government. Or maybe he's gonna run for president again, and so yes, this would not be technical First Amendment violation, but you're getting as close as you can, and certainly way closer than Jack Dorsey or Mark Zuckerberg. Okay, so but that's just the least of it. So guys, this shows you something definitively, and we could prove it in logic. So our right-wing audience will see you later. I know you're not interested. Okay, so for the rest of you now look, everybody's telling you the same thing, makes sense. They point out the obvious hypocrisy, and they say, well, it turns out you are in favor of censorship, right? And so that's clear. But what this also is a confession. Because Donald Trump, Devin Nunes here are saying, we agree with what Twitter and Facebook did in banning us. Because we think banning people is the right thing to do, especially if they even just do something as simple as offend you. You should ban them. This guy offended me by pretending to be my cow, so I banned him. I canceled him and I censored him. I think that is the right policy, because that's the policy I just did, I implemented it, right? So if Twitter or Facebook or any other social media platform banned Trump or any other right-wingers, well, that is obviously the right thing to do. And for an offense as slight as offending the owner of or the CEO of the platform. Now, causing violence and other things that and spreading lies and misinformation about a contagious disease, I mean, that's a much lower bar to get banned, right?
You would hope.
Like you think the highest bar is, I don't like you, so I censored you, right? Like that's
they skipped right to that.
They skipped right to it, right? So, but in doing so, they're confessing that banning people does make sense. Because they just did it.
Yeah, and they're at least saying it's all about where you draw the line. They draw it at the most ridiculous spot, but they accept that Twitter gets to decide because they're saying that they do. And by the way, there is actually an added layer of hypocrisy that doesn't help them out on this, is that we often will say, as you alluded to, at the fact that it's a private company, as things like Twitter are and those sorts of things, they get to have terms of service and they get to enforce them. And the violations that end up with these people being banned are going against the clearly posted and long established terms of service. In this case, with Truth Social and Devin Nunes's cow, they're actually going against their own terms of service, because obviously you do have to have some limitations on, for instance, there's a journalist who immediately claimed @real Donald Trump on Trump's social network. Of course, they're not gonna let you do that. You can't do that. But they have a section of their terms of service that say, unauthorized or impersonator accounts impersonating another person or entity that is not a parody can be banned. So they banned what to me is obviously a parody, unless you believe that they're stating that this guy was being serious about it being Devin Nunes's cow, that it was actually the cow that was signing up for this, or could, and thus you're impersonating it, then you can ban him. But it's obviously a parody. They specifically say that you can do obvious parodies.
There's some chance that Trump and Nunes are dumb enough to think, here comes that goddamn cow again. How did that cow get to be smarter than us? You know, that's why we're against AOC and our Green New Deal thing where we stop eating the burgers. I want to eat that cow.
Exactly, right? Get rid of it. Look how suspicious those burgers are.
By the way, she doesn't ban burgers.
No.
That's nonsense, okay? If anyone's banning people, it's apparently Trump.
Yeah.
For something as light as, you have slightly offended me.
Yeah.
I have cried in a corner because of you. I will not ban you. Look, last thing on this. Mainstream media is hilarious. So they point out this, right? And they note the irony, hypocrisy, etc. So it's not like they don't do that. But they never connect it to cancel culture, right?
Yep.
And so like, whether it's cable news, Bill Maher, it doesn't matter. Every time they talk about cancel culture, they only talk about left-wing instances of it, and they never talk about the overwhelming number of times the right wing does it.
Yeah.
Try to get Palestinian professors fired, right? Cancel your government contracts if you say something mean about Israel, okay? And if you're a left-wing protester, you're allowed to be run over by a car in places like Florida and South Dakota. That would cancel your life, right?
Yep.
And I'm gonna give you 1,000 examples. Yet everybody in mainstream media is like, what? I never heard of it. But wait, you just did the story about the Devin Nunes cow, and they canceled the guy's account. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
No, cancel culture is only left wing.
Yeah.
What is wrong with mainstream media in this country?
That's my frustration that I've had for a very long time. It's not that they need to provide balance. It's that the construct of cancel culture does not allow for right-wing examples. That a right-winger, like literally censoring something, is not cancel culture to them. It just isn't. It can only be a left-wing thing.
John, they literally burn books.
They burn and ban books.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if, as they're throwing it into the fire with their angry faces, they're like, "I cancel you, right? You are is canceled, right?" And mainstream media anchors are like, "I don't see it."
Yeah.
What? No. I don't see it.
What if you had written a book called "Don't Burn This Book" about how the left wing wants to get rid of books? Wouldn't you feel obligated to speak up at a time like this if you were serious at all?
That's literal. That's literal. Yes, some guy who used to work here wrote that book, and then when they're literally burning books, he's like, "I don't see it.
I don't care." It's
yeah,
fine.
and a super last thing. This actually happened to me, right? So first the alt-right canceled me, and they did a right-wing attack against me when I was started Just Democrats, and that was not considered cancel culture. But when the Democrats did it to me in the campaign, they're like, cancel culture. I got interviewed by CBS because of cancel culture because the left canceled me. I'm like, but guys, the right wing tried to cancel me first. They're like, I don't see it. I'm like, what? How can you not see it? I'm telling you, it started with the right wing, right? They're like, okay, so you were saying the left wing canceled you how?
I would be kind of offended by CBS approaching me with that interview because while the construct of cancel culture only allows for one initiator of it, it also generally only allows for one target of it. And it's a little bit judgy to identify you as a person who could be canceled by the left because those people are all terrible. That's sort of mean.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.